Welcome to Fun is Fundamental. Fun is Fundamental is a podcast for those who realize that the enjoyment of life is about having something deep in our souls which lights our fire. It's for those who maybe have lost that fire and feel like they are missing out on the pleasures of life. In each episode, I will share recent fun activities and focus on why having fun is essential for good health. I'm your host, Alenia, and I invite you to take this journey with me and join the pleasure-seeking movement. Good afternoon, Robert. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. How are you today?
I'm very well. I guess first off, I just like to hear from the person who I am talking to. That's the weirdest way to say it. Who I'm interviewing. How, who who are you? Tell the audience something about you. Like what's going on in your life?
Well, I am married to the most beautiful woman in any room. We've been married 26 years tomorrow, and she is my best friend. And we live here in North Texas, north of Dallas. We have two adult children. One is Lauren, who lives in Austin, married to Dylan, and our son James is finishing up his college career, so he's still living here with us. He's going to UT Dallas. I grew up in Southern California and I moved to Texas in 2010. I absolutely love living in Texas. It's great. What I do for a living is I run CEO peer groups. That means I bring together business owners every month and we meet in private and we talk about the challenges that we have in running our businesses and living the life that we want and reaching our goals and making decisions, and we're there for each other. It's really cool. And I've been doing that for 11 years now. Most of my career was in marketing and sales. But when I learned about peer groups, I thought, well, that's me. I got to do that for a living. So I quit at the age of 50 and decided to change my careers and go a completely different direction. And it was hard and it was quite a learning curve, but I love it.
Nice. Well, first off, congratulations on 26 years. That's very
Thank you.
exciting.
Thank you. She's
Yeah.
awesome.
And also changing your career at 50 is gutsy. A lot of
Yeah,
people wouldn't do it.
it only seemed gutsy later on once you committed to it. You know, I when I identified my personal purpose in my life, I started looking around and going, "Am I really doing what to fulfill my purpose?" And I wasn't. And I think God had stirred that in my heart to get me ready for this big change because it takes a lot to identify your purpose. But when you know it, anything else doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. It's like, why am I wasting my time? And so when I came across the business of running peer groups, I immediately knew that is a way for me to live out my purpose in life. And so I just had to do it. And it was a big change. It was a big risk. I have the kind of wife who, when I tell her what my passion is, she goes, okay. And she supports me and helps me. And she's been awesome. She's my business partner and she makes things fun. And so it's been an exciting journey.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, the idea of peer groups sounds really cool. I definitely did not know
It
that
is.
they exist exactly, like as a like that's a job that you could have as like running peer groups. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. There's weird jobs for everything, right? There really
There sure
is.
is.
But the whole cool thing about a peer group is that it is accountability, which is where I got this whole Jones for writing the book about accountability, because I've watched it for these last 11 years and I've seen people who have not done well with accountability and others who have done fantastic with it. And there's a huge difference. Those who own it, those who get it and own it, they rule the world. The other ones who make excuses and blame things and say they can't do things or just wait and hope it gets better, they struggle and they're miserable and they're frustrated. And I've learned that if you're going to be a leader, you got to own it. You got to have accountability. And that's where the whole premise of the book came from.
And when did you write the book, and what was like the catalyst for deciding that you wanted to write a book?
We published it in 22. At the September of 22, it came out. We committed to write it. My friend Salem Thine and I, who are the co-authors, we committed to write it in 21, and we would spend Saturdays outlining the book and writing stories and capturing all this data and then go, okay, now you write it. And he'd be like, oh no, you write it. And so we'd never get anywhere. And we had a bunch of data, but it wasn't a book. And so after about 6 months of kind of having frustrated planning sessions that just never manifested into anything written, we just decided, which business leaders do, to delegate. And so we hired a publishing company, a very good one, and paid them a sick amount of money to get the book written because we knew we weren't going to do it and we wanted it done well. And that's the challenge of writing a book. I mean, it's your own baby. It's got to be what you think it should be. And you can't just go, write me a book. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And someone has to think and speak like your voice. And there was two of us, two different voices in the book. Salem has his own life and vibe, and I have mine. And
Mhm.
so it was a real challenge for this ghostwriter to capture us. But we flew out to California for a couple of days and spent a couple of days at the beach with her, talking about the book and getting things written down and talking about us and letting her catch our vibe. She did a fantastic job putting the book together. So
Nice.
we're co-authors. I don't say I wrote a book because I didn't write it.
Yeah.
Sometimes people they'll quote me a section from the book and I'll go, did we say that? Yeah, there's a lot in there. Sometimes I forget what we were talking about.
Yeah. Well, is there are there any parts that are in your voice? Because you said that you kind of like wrote
Lots
like
of it.
some stories kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I think she captures both of our spirits in our sections. When I tell a story about my life, it she writes it and like she would put in words that I wouldn't say. And I'd say, hey, I don't say that. Like, I don't really swear. And so, she would say something that was for exaggeration. And she said, "It's bullshit." And I go, oh, how about we just say that's a bunch of baloney, And so there was like things that I just didn't feel comfortable with. My mom's going to read this book, man. Let's be real about this. And I don't talk that way. So, but anyway, she did a great job of just pulling the pieces together. And I think when we do an audiobook, which is on the horizon, I will read my part, Salem will read his part, and it'll be cool to have us both doing the book together in audio.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Yeah. Um, well, I guess tell us a little bit more about Nobody Cares Until You Do.
Yeah, the book is about accountability, which sounds boring in a lot of senses. Why would I read a book on accountability? But in what I've seen in living the life of accountability is joy and freedom and power. And when we think of accountability, we think of someone's going to hold you accountable or you got to be accountable for that. And it seems punitive. But in reality, it's freedom. We walk this journey in our own lives, and this is really the catalyst for writing the book. In the beginning of 2019, we had amassed $90,000 in debt, and it was really killing us. And as much as we tried to work out a plan, figure out a way to fix it, it just kept getting worse. And so at the beginning of 2019, I said, look, this isn't the life we want to live. We whiteboarded out one night, what do we want our lives to look like? Every beginning of the year, my beautiful wife and I would go away for a couple of days and we'd dream. What do you want life to look like? What do you want to do this year? What should we work on? And every year, part of it was getting out of debt, and it just wasn't happening. So in 2019, I said, look, well, what's the most important thing in our lives? And we agreed that it was to honor the Lord with our lives and our marriage and our time. And all we were doing was being whiny babies who were angry about our debt. So we decided if we couldn't get out of debt that year, we'd sell the house. And we did everything we could that year to make business grow crazy, and just somehow have this huge windfall of success that would pay off $90,000 in debt. It was ridiculous. And so in September of that year, I got vertigo for 16 days.
Mm.
Couldn't sit up, couldn't lay down, couldn't sleep, couldn't do anything. And I thought, about 10 days into it, Kathy, we're screwed because I can't earn money the rest of my life. How are we going to get out of debt? What are we going to do? And thankfully, the Lord took it away. But it was after that was over, I said, that's it. We're pulling the trigger now. We're going to sell the house. So we did put the house on the market. Took a while to sell it. Took it back off the market for Christmas, put it back on the market in spring. And in March of 2020, we sold our home, our beautiful two-story, 3,500 square foot with a movie theater upstairs and beautiful furniture and all these things. We sold it all and walked away and moved into here with very few things because most of the things we owned before would not fit in this house. It was too big. Those things were too big for this house. But lovely home that we're at now with wonderful neighbors. And we started over and we owned it and we had such peace. And it was the catalyst for everything else in our lives going, okay, what else are we not happy with? And we started going to counseling to work through some marital junk. We looked at our finances and made budgets and plans and started looking at how we spend our money. We looked at our health. I was the fattest I'd ever been in my life. And I thought, okay, I don't like this. And so, well, are you willing to do some about it? Yeah. And so all these things that we started looking at that we never thought, like, why even worry about it when you're $90,000 in debt? It's kind of like if your hair's on fire, you don't care what color your pants are. You just got your hair on fire. And so we just ignored everything else in comparison to the debt. But when we took rid of that and we conquered it, we started looking at everything else, and everything else was up for grabs. And we've been consciously working through chasing the life that we really want bit by bit, and it's been beautiful.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. What has the feedback been on your book?
I get lots of great feedback. People tell me how much it speaks to them and how it's changed their lives. And one of the frustrations I have is that I say, well, then tell me about your satisfaction assessment. That's in the book. At the
Mm.
beginning of the book, you take a satisfaction assessment, and it's the starting point for you to say whether you like your life or not, and what are you going to do about it. And a lot of times they'll say, oh, I never took that. You go, well, how'd you read the book? The whole book is pinned upon that assessment and what it says and what you're going to do about it. And so they say how great it is and how much they like it. But if you don't take the assessment, I think you're missing majority of what the book could do for you. So although it's flattering to have someone say nice things about the book, and we've had some really nice things and people praise these things about the book, but at the end of the day, if it's not changing lives, if it's really not giving you a tool to own your journey, I'm not that excited about it. So we're starting now to do workshops. That's our future. I want to do a workshop in every city around the world,
Mm.
and whoever will have me. And let's just get together in a room with a couple hundred people and let's just talk about accountability and let's practice it right then and there. See how it works. See how you stop, how you hold yourself as a victim and be aware of it and practice it so you can own it the rest of your life.
Yeah. Why do you think a lot of people avoid that, satisfaction quiz
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
beginning?
I should ask them. They usually just say, "Well, I was just kind of going through it quickly and didn't take the time," which is another reason why I've hesitated to do an audiobook. Because if you're listening to it, you won't take the assessment. You'll be
Hmm.
driving somewhere across country, you'll put in this book and you'll listen to it while you're driving, but you won't do the assessment. And it's pivotal. But I think a lot of people don't want to take the assessment because they don't want to have to admit where they're miserable. And if I have to say honestly, I mean, really honestly, my marriage is not that great. I've lost my faith. My finances are in the toilet. I hate my job. If you're going to be honest about that, then the question is, what are you going to do about it? And that's where people don't want to get to that point because then they got to be facing with the reality that they got to make a choice. They got to do something. So instead, we create this false narrative and then we live as victims and we're very comfortable with our victimhood. We don't say that, I like to be a victim, but we act like it by the way we behave when we ignore things that are not right, but we don't do anything about it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of people have kind of these blind spots of like things that they're just like, nope, I just don't want to deal with that. I don't want to see that. That's
Yeah.
it's fine. It's fine. What's that classic meme of like everything's fine when it's burning behind you, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The bummer about that is that you will deal with it at some point. It's just that you don't deal with it on your own terms. You deal with it when your butt's handed to you, when you lose a job, when your spouse files for divorce, when your kid gets arrested for the fourth time, and this time he's not coming out. You'll deal with all these things that we don't want to deal with one way or another. And if you have a health issue and you never go to the doctor, you're going to die from it. So that's one way to deal with it. If you have problems with your finances and you don't deal with it, you're going to go to get bankruptcy or have them repossess your home. That's another way to deal with it. But you're a victim at that point because you don't have any control. It's someone has told you this is where you're going to go, this is what you're going to do. Wouldn't you rather own it and do it on your own terms? It's going to suck either way. But why not suck doing it towards a solution that makes your life better instead of sucking through it, making it worse or stays just as bad as it is? I would rather have a journey that's hard towards a great life than to stay as a victim.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like the whole like hitting rock bottom thing. It's like, yeah, that does prompt you to things to change, but it's like, why do you want it to get to that point? And you
Yeah.
just keep ignoring it until it gets to that point. Yeah.
When the pain of where you are is worse than the pain of where you need to go, you will change. That's rock bottom stuff. However, why would you do that? And the reason that you would is because you don't believe you have any other choice. You believe the lie. And we point out in the book there are four things that hold us as a victim. We blame, we make excuses, we say we can't, or we wait and hope. So look at anything in your life that you don't like and say, okay, why don't I like it? Because of this. Okay, is that a blame? Are you blaming the person who did it to you? Are you blaming a bad boss? Are you blaming the economy? Are you blaming God? Are you blaming your spouse? And if that doesn't work, you make excuses. Well, this was a thing. COVID hit this. Well, the economy is this way. And, well, I don't know how to do these things. That's just an excuse, but all it does is make us give up. That there's no motivation when you have an excuse. You're just like, oh, I guess that's all it is. Like my excuse was I wasn't good at sales. Well, what could you do if you're not good at sales? Get sales training. How hard was that? But for years, I would say, I'm not really good at sales, so I just wouldn't make sales calls. Well, go figure my business wasn't growing. I wasn't making sales calls.
Yeah.
So I went and got trained by an amazing man, Frank, in this area here in Dallas. And he taught me Sandler philosophy of sales. And I'm a great salesperson. I just had to get rid of my head trash and have a process to do it. So whatever your thing is, you either blame it, you make excuses, or you say you can't. We said we can't. We can't sell our house. That's ridiculous. Where are we going to live? I mean, how are you going to do this? You going to sell all your stuff? What do you have to buy new furniture? No, you don't. We lived with folding chairs and a fold-out bed in the living room for 3 months till the stores came back on. You couldn't buy anything. Nobody was open. Remember
Yeah.
COVID? You couldn't even get direct mail. There was nothing in inventory or no one to ship it. And so we figured out pretty quick we can live with nothing. And it's okay. Did it suck? Yeah. But it didn't suck like the way it sucked when we had all that debt, living in fear that if tomorrow, if I lose one bit of business, I'm going to go bankrupt. That was a different kind of suck.
Mhm.
So we blame, we make excuses, we say we can't when we really say I won't. You should replace the word I can't with I won't. And then you just say, okay, well, why won't you? And then you work on that. And then the fourth one is we just wait and hope. Wait and hope is making minimum payments on your credit card, hoping that somehow you'll get a big raise or a promotion or something. But what happens if you lose your job? Now you're screwed. You've been making minimum payments. You have no money coming in. So now you're going to really start racking up debt. And we wait and hope. We don't go see the doctor. We know we've had this medical problem, and I know it's really bad, but I don't want to see him because I don't want to know what's going on. And then it gets worse and worse. Turns out you got cancer. But now it's stage 4, where you could have gone seen him when it was stage 1. So these are all these things that we do that throw back at us the life we don't want. And we had the opportunity to own it and do something about it. But we stayed as a victim and we weren't even aware of it.
Mhm. Well, and also like some of these things that the things that you need to do to change these things are like it's temporary. It's temporary that you have to be on a diet. It's
Right.
temporary that you have to like buckle down and not go on, spend your money doing this, and this. Once you're out of a hole, once you heal an injury, once lose weight, it's not like ev- every discomfort has to be forever.
Well, there's trade-offs in everything, right? Like I don't want to have to tell my wife, hey, I don't like when you do this. This makes me feel uncomfortable. That's an awkward conversation. So instead of having that, I'll just have a bunch of fights over nothing. Well, what's worse? Being honest with her and telling her that this is a problem and makes you feel a certain way, or fighting about stuff all the time. Either way, it's awkward, right?
Mhm.
So the thing I don't want people to misunderstand. I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life. I'm just saying that you should decide how you want to live your life and then you should do that. But people will feel like they want a certain life, but they won't do anything about it. So if I want to lose weight, then I just could choose a couple things. Like maybe I'll exercise a little more. I still want to have pizza and beer with my friends, then still have pizza and beer with your friends, but don't have it every night. And on the other nights, walk a little bit more and have a salad. This is where you make choices instead of saying, well, I just can't do this. These are these things we lie to ourselves about. But it's your life, and you should decide how you want to live it and what you want to do with it, and not just the circumstances dictate that that's all you get.
Mhm. Do you have any other tips that are in your book about holding yourself accountable to make
Yeah.
changes?
Yeah. When you go through the process of creating a world of accountability, it requires vulnerability. You need to be willing to tell other people really what's going on. When I have a problem and I don't tell anyone about it, I can easily change my mind and nobody knows. That's why alcoholics, when they go to Alcoholics Anonymous, they stand up and they go, "Hey, I'm Robert, I'm an alcoholic." And you declare it to the people there because that's part of you owning it. And so when we were selling our house, we had to tell people, yeah, we're selling our house. We didn't have to, we chose to. We chose to say, we're selling our house because we're $90,000 in debt and I need to start my life over. And they were like, wow. But, I needed to have that experience of me owning my junk instead of just trying to spin it to make me look good. Ah, we got another house. We're moving up to a bigger mansion,
Sure.
lying. But we need to have vulnerability and invite people into our journey so they can ask us questions and encourage us to stay on track. Nobody can hold anyone accountable. Nobody can make you do anything. But if I invite someone in, they can encourage me in my journey. And when you start to lie to yourself, you can check in with them and you can show them the progress and go, I feel like I'm getting nowhere. And they go, dude, so far you've lost 38 pounds. That's awesome. Yeah, but for a month I haven't lost any. Who cares? You lost 38 pounds and you haven't gained any back. What are you talking about? And you're sleeping better and you're saving money because you're not going out to eat like you used to. I mean, the ripple effect of owning your junk is amazing. There's a very cool video out there called The Wolves of Yellowstone, and it's about trophic cascade. A trophic cascade is an event in nature that one particular thing has this ripple effect on everything else. And in Yellowstone, they reintroduced the wolves back into Yellowstone. And because the wolves changed the behavior of the elk who had decimated the valley for years, the elk went up and started grazing where it was safer, and the valley came back to life. And when the plants started coming back, all the other animals came back, and the river started meandering properly instead of overflowing the banks because there was no plants to hold it. And this ripple effect in nature is marked and tracked, and it's beautiful. That is what it is when you own your life. You'll have one thing that you change. Like for us, it was our debt, which then rippled out into how our health was, and our faith with God, and our relationship with each other, and how we saw the world and my business, how confident I was in the business world. Well, I don't need you as a client. If you don't like me and you don't want to work with me, that's okay. I don't need your money. I have enough because I wasn't living in fear. Everything is connected to each other. So when you do something good here, it has this really cool ripple effect. And so when you create a place of vulnerability and you invite people in, they can push you along and encourage you, and you get results done that way.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess as someone who has a hard time sticking to things that I've made choices for myself, but I'm very good at like being holding myself accountable for other people, then it's like, yeah,
What does
it's a
that
good
mean?
thing for me
What
to
does
like
that
be like,
mean? I don't
hey,
understand what that
this is
means.
what
I'm
I'm
holding
doing.
myself. Explain that phrase. What does that mean? Holding myself accountable for other people. You mean that you do what you're supposed to do if someone else knows about it?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
yeah, like I will like tell my husband to be like, you're holding me accountable for not doing this or to do this or something like that, you know? And I'm
Yeah.
more likely to like follow through because
Yeah.
he's there to hold me
And
accountable.
we've got to change that phrase. It's important because we have to change the phrase from "you're holding me accountable" to "I'm being accountable to you," because
Mhm.
that puts the ownership on you, all the authority on you, all the power on you. He's just a note taker. And if you say you're holding me accountable, who's responsible there? He is. And really, I want it to be me. I want it to feel like me. I own this. Why? Not because I need another burden, because it gives me strength. When I own it and I'm the one doing it, I'm a badass. When someone else is doing it, they're the one in charge. And so, since no one can hold you accountable, we've got to start practicing the phrase, I'm holding myself accountable, and I want to invite you into the journey to support me. And so, would you encourage me in this process? I know it seems like semantics, but it's really not, because it's helping you start to look at it. This is my thing. And that's not like a heavy burden. That's power. That's encouragement. I own this. I'm doing this. This is not that person babysitting me. This is me rocking my world the way I really want to.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and I guess that's a good way to like also it builds confidence in yourself and your
Yeah.
ability to follow through and I guess that probably also contributes to the ripple effect because as you grow confidence, you're like, hey, what else can I tackle, right?
It does. It totally does. And because you've conquered something, there's a spirit about you that just kind of becomes bold, and it gives you more hope, and there is a ripple effect in that for sure.
I guess like what is your number one goal for your book?
I want to change people's lives. I want people to read this, be inspired, and understand what it means to own your journey, and then equip them to go be having the life they want. It, I did it in my own situation, and it's very freeing. I want that for more people. So I would love when people aren't having the life they want and they want to change it, I'd love to be the book they talk about. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be very cool, of course. Yeah, definitely. What are your long-term plans for your book and,
Yeah, we've got a movie
what else?
coming out in a couple years called Nobody Cares, and it's going to be George Clooney's going to play my part. And no, I'm just making all that up.
Yeah.
I think right now the goal is to take what I've learned and teach it as many people as I can. So we want to continue to talk about the book and get exposure out there and do workshops and do keynotes and all those things. But I've got probably another 20 years of good work inside of me. I don't ever plan to retire because I love what I do.
Mhm.
And I don't think that retirement makes sense. Everybody I know who retires dies. And so I think I have a lot to do in life still. And I like what I do. And I've created a life that I enjoy. So it's not like I got to get this done so I can go live the life I want. I'm living it right now. I'm enjoying it right now. And so I think I'd like to work for the next 20 years or so. And I want to build up leaders, challenge people, encourage them to know the Lord and to walk out their lives with confidence and have good marriages. And that's my focus. It's one person at a time if it has to be, but big groups be welcome so we can get more people moving down the road quicker. But I think this could keep me busy for another 20 years.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any tips that you kind of gathered along the way to make the journey fun? Because I know sometimes people are like, they just are like, oh, I don't want to do this because it's not fun. I mean, obviously some things are not fun,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
sure that there are some things that you can do to make the journey more fun.
So I'll go with both sides of that thought. Let's look at what's fun and let's realize that not doing it is really not fun. So we'll start with the not doing it thing. My life was miserable when I didn't own it. I felt helpless and hopeless. And that's a miserable way to live. So I find that in sales and marketing, more motivated people are more motivated by something fearful and negative than they are by something positive. So we'll start with the negative and fearful. If you want to have a miserable life and be frustrated and disappointed and sad and unhappy with your life, stay there. But if you don't like those things, there's a way to get out of it. The fun side of it is it's fun to own the life you want and to pursue the things you like. Like I could never enjoy my life because I felt like I had to work constantly. I remember getting offered from my brother to go on an all expenses vacation with he and his wife. He was going to take my beautiful wife and I with them on a vacation, and they were going to pay for everything because they knew how stressed out we were and how frustrating things were going. And I said, "No, man, I can't go. I have to stay and work. I
Mhm.
can't justify taking off a week of vacation when I owe all this money and my business is really tanking." And so it was such a beatdown, and I made it worse by rejecting any kind of fun or joy because how dare I have a good life when I'm so stressed about my money? So I was so negative in it. And so I think the joy comes in living the life you want. And if you have stuff in your life you don't dig, if you're not having a good marriage, go do something about it. It's still awkward. I mean, in the second half of the book, we talk about the way that you get things fixed once you acknowledge nobody cares and you want to do something about it, then you acknowledge reality, you embrace the suck, you find a solution, and you make it happen. And so when you acknowledge the reality of where you're at, it might suck. Going to counseling sucked. I had to sit in a room with my beautiful wife and talk about stuff. She has things I don't have. She has feelings. And I was just trying to process through all those things and understand them. And so it was very awkward to sit in a room and have difficult conversations. But there were so many misunderstandings, and some of these things were so simple, like that's all you care about? That's what you think? I didn't know that. And so we make it seem like it's so hard, but it's not. It's just fear. It's lying to ourselves. So I think it should be fun to have the life you want, but if you don't get to have the life you want, there is no fun. Let's say you party, you have a great time, you go out, you spend a lot of money, you have all your friends together, and for 5 hours you have a great time. But you come home hungover again. You ate a lot of food you shouldn't eat. Your body's beat down and tired. You show up late for work because you're hungover and you're dragging. Your boss yells at you because you didn't do a good job. You made a bunch of mistakes. And then you just dropped $600 on all your buddies partying the night before. Where's the joy? You've got $600 more you owe. Your boss is mad at you. Your body's hurting for 5 hours of fun. I mean, come on. So I think this is where you got to look at your life and say, what is my life going to look like? And if it looks like that, let's go there. Let's be intentional. That to me is fun. I'm enjoying my life today because I own it.
Yeah. Well, and also with like your example, it's like it's not a lot of those like short-term things are just not sustainable for sure. And sometimes those people aren't even really your friends. Like they're not really there for you.
Yeah, that's one of the things we learned about in accountability is that sometimes we need to change our friends. Not that you get rid of all your friends, but look, the reality is if you have friends that supported you and living a life that's dysfunctional, they're probably not going to dig it when you decide not to do that anymore. Two reasons. One is it makes them look bad because you're changing and they're not going to change. And then they're going to think you're judging them and thinking you're better than them and all that stuff. Plus, they really don't see the need for it. They're stuck in that victim mindset and they're going to stay there. And so when you start making those changes, they're going to say, you don't need to do that. Don't be a zealot. Lighten up. So everything's fine. Everybody has debt. Everybody does this. Everybody cheats on their spouse. Everybody did all these things that people will tell you. But if that's not the life you want, don't listen to them. But that's how people will be. And so you might need to find other people who will come alongside you in a very positive way as you're making changes in your life. And they don't believe in the dysfunction you had before. They believe where you're going and what you want to do, and they'll cheer you on. So it's sometimes you got to surround yourself with different friends who see things that support your journey.
Yeah.
There's one other tip that I'll share
Mhm.
that is important in this process. When you've had a life, I just look down at myself at the camera and I have like this angry face whenever I'm talking about stuff. I used to get like this, and I got to figure out a way not to
It's
have
just
that.
intense.
Yeah.
I believe in it so deeply.
Um, there's this thing called the identity versus role, and it's the IR philosophy or something. It's in Sandler. But basically, the idea is that you will never perform any role higher than you believe your identity is. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you think you're a 6, for whatever reason, you'll never be any role you have higher than a 6. You'll never be a spouse any better than a 6, or an employee, or a son or daughter, or a friend, or anything higher than the identity that you really see you are. No role can go higher than your identity. However, if you believe you are a 10, which you are, then every role you have can go up. And every role you have is not a 10. It's a given because once you hit a 10, things change and now you're a 6 because it's harder to do it. So you never hit 10. But the idea is that you are a 10. You are a 10. You're born a 10 and you're going to die a 10. You're fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God. And when you're a little kid, and remember, you ever watch little kids, they jump vertically for no reason. They're just standing there, they just jump vertically like a chihuahua. Why are you happy? There's nothing to be happy about. I'm just happy. What happened to that? Well, life came along, and all of a sudden, all the other things, mean kids and tough things and hardships, all of a sudden took away our joy. But for some reason, we forgot we were tens. When I was a kid, I could believe I was Superman who could fly around, put a towel around my neck, and fly around the house. I could do everything. I believed in myself. I was fantastic. But in my journey over the years, you lose a lot of that. We need to go back to the 10 that we are, and then all the other roles have room to improve. And if your life isn't what you want it to be, that's okay. We all have things that we don't do right. It's called a mistake, but own it and go and be the person you want to be. So, because you're a 10, you actually can do that. When I looked at my business and the failure that I had because I owed $90,000 in debt, at that point, I thought I'm a bad husband because I didn't take care of my family or my spouse. I'm a bad dad because I put my kids' future at risk by having all this debt. I'm a bad business owner because I couldn't run my business profitably and grow enough to be able to give the kind of revenue I needed to provide for my family. All these things just made me feel like a failure. But I was not, I did not stop being a 10. I just felt like a loser. And I had to go back to the reality of I am a 10. God loved me enough to die for me. I'm a 10. I'm special. I'm wonderfully made. Just like everyone who's listening to this podcast, you are a 10. So hold on to the 10 and then look at everything else and just get better at it. But you know you can go up to the 10, so you're on the trajectory. Don't hold yourself back because of your journey. Don't believe a lie that you suck just because you failed in some area of your life. Just press on, own it, and go chase something else.
For sure. I always like to ask my guests, how do you define fun?
Ah, find fun. Something that gives me joy, something that makes me laugh. Fun feeds my soul. I think fun is something I don't do enough of. I think I am pretty focused and intentional, but I would say also that my work is fun. So I guess that I'm doing a lot of work, so that can become fun. Yeah, fun is something that feeds my soul. Fun is something that gives me joy.
Mhm. For sure.
How do you
Well,
define fun?
ah, so I think, yeah, it is a lightness. Um, it is, yeah, I would say yes, it does. It feeds your soul. It's light. It's effervescent and bubbly. Um, fun is, I don't know, fun is like reaching for the clouds, like with your spirit.
I suppose fun is anything that's not work. Because even when I'm not at work, if I have to do the dishes, that's work. If I have to wash the laundry, that's work. If I have to pay my bills, that's work. And so anything that is not work is fun. So learning, that could be fun. That could also be work. Just depends on what you're doing it for, right? But
Hmm.
usually when you are doing something that is not work, that's fun. That usually is, I think, the definition I think most people could connect to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think like with a lot of our tasks in a day are they're just so like mundane. Like there's nothing that like feels special or exciting or, you
Of course, we
know.
could make it fun. We could put on some music and we could listen to a podcast like this. But you could put on some music and a comedy routine, or you could, have something going where you're doing laundry fun.
Hmm.
I guess it's all in
Yeah,
your attitude.
I've always hated folding my clothes. I will just like leave them in a ball. I will hang up my clothes, but I just hated folding them. And I was just like, you know what? Maybe I need to like change how I'm viewing folding my clothes.
Yeah,
And so like I would like play music or, do have something like that's kind of entertaining while I fold my clothes. And it's just like I'm actually folding my clothes now. Like
yeah, good, good.
yeah. Um according to the Institute of Play, there are 8 play personalities. There's the Joker, the kinesthetic, the competitor, the artist, the storyteller, the explorer, the collector, and the director. And you can be more than one. How would you define yourself? What do you think your play personality is?
I'm the storyteller. Yeah, I love telling stories. They share my heart. They connect to people. People connect to stories. Life is just a series of stories passed on from one generation to another. Yeah, I'm the storyteller.
Yeah, I can see that. And you wrote a book. Like,
Yeah. Well, I tell stories all day long, when I'm working with a client and we're talking through a challenge. I never tell a client what to do. I ask them, well, what do you want to do? Well, why aren't you doing that? Well, let's figure out what's holding you back. And stories share insights and ideas and inspire. And so when someone's telling me a frustration, I can say, I had a client who did this, or one time I had this. And by sharing your story, you're giving insights that they get to interpret the way they want to. I don't tell the story and then say, and therefore you should do this. I
Hmm.
just say, here's a story I've learned. Someone had this problem, here's what they went through, and they did this and they learned that. And I leave it. And then they go, oh, that doesn't apply to me. I can't relate to that. Or, yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And they get to decide what connects. But I tend to do a pretty good job finding a story that or an experience that I've seen before that will encourage them in their journey.
Hmm. Well, and also stories are such a great way for people to not feel alone in whatever journey they're on, you know.
Hmm.
And so then it's like, okay, I I realize I'm not the only one who's been through this, and
Yeah.
I can work my way through this, you know. Yeah.
There's very few things that you're the only one who's ever worked their way through it. I really can't think of anything. We've all gone through the same stuff. We all have problems. Someone's gone through whatever you're going through. The challenge is for us to be vulnerable enough to let people know where we're going through something so they can care for us or encourage us or share a story.
Hmm. Definitely. What makes you laugh?
My son makes me laugh. And my wife. My wife's the funniest person I ever met. She is just naturally full of joy. When I first met her in high school, I couldn't believe that she was actually that nice. I thought there's no one that nice. I thought she was fake. She was a cheerleader and she was super well known by everyone. She hates when they use the word popular, but she was well known by everybody and she talked to everybody. She didn't follow the cliques. She cared for everybody. But I thought there's no way anyone's that nice. And she was, and she always has been. But she is funny. She sees things and she just pops out something and says it. And she's always in tune. We lost four babies when we were trying to have James
Mm.
and blighted ovums, um, false, when the baby couldn't be born all the way. And she had to go in and have the baby D&C'd. And it was sad. It was really sad. But my wife laughed and she knew that, okay, that's what God has for us. And so we'll figure something out. And she found joy in the journey of that. You're going to go through it anyway. You could be miserable or you can have joy.
Hmm.
You can have joy because you know that I have the God of the universe on my side and he's got a plan for me. And I don't know why this is happening, but since I know he loves me and since I know he's all powerful, if he decides that those four babies need to stay with him in heaven and we get James eventually, okay, but she always seems to find joy and humor in pretty much everything, unless I piss her off, which does happen sometimes. But
Sure.
but for
Yeah, for
now,
sure. I can imagine. Um, what's your favorite season?
oh, fall. I love fall. This is my favorite time of year. We in Texas, it's brutally hot in the summer for 3 months, 4 months, and whenever you got through a summer, you just you're like a badge of honor. You conquered another summer. And when fall comes around and the cool air starts to blow on you again, and you wake up in the morning and it's not sweaty hot, it's just a nice cool breeze. You just stand there like, oh, I've gone into another planet. And then it's the leaves lose their tree colors, and the leaves fall. And then you get a jacket out of the closet, after the summer. Nights around the fireplace where we just have quiet. And I like to enjoy a pipe. So I sit on the back porch and have a pipe and the cool air. I put a jacket on, and it's Thanksgiving, my favorite holiday, because everyone's about gimme, 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 and we go from Halloween, gimme candy, to Christmas, gimme toys. And I think we miss Thanksgiving. It's the coolest holiday. It's a chance to be thankful, and I'm very thankful. And so to stop and reflect, we actually mail out Thanksgiving cards instead of Christmas cards.
Oh,
We,
nice.
we create our own Thanksgiving card every year, and I was working on it today actually. And we mail those out to our friends and just tell them we're thankful for them. because everyone gets a Christmas card. I get these Christmas cards where someone just scribbles. I can't even tell what name it is. If the name wasn't printed there, I wouldn't even know who it was from. But there's no like, hey, I hope you and Kathy are having a wonderful time. Are you going to go see Lauren for Christmas? It's just, here's my name.
Yeah.
And I think we need to stop and be thankful. We live pretty great lives, and so yeah, fall is my favorite time of year.
Nice. Yeah. Well, it sounds like a relief. Fall in Texas sounds like a relief. Definitely.
It
Like,
is. It is.
okay, breathe. Um, what is your dream vacation?
Mm. We are actually going to have our dream vacation, I think, next year. We want to go somewhere tropical where the water's blue and sit on the beach and ride bikes and golf and jet ski and do adventures, and have a beer on the stand and watch the sun go down and just do nothing and just be quiet. We like quiet places, but we like to do stuff too.
Mhm.
We've never gone to the East Coast, so we want to go. I mean, out in the tropical areas like the Bahamas or something. We're going to find a place in that kind of area. We've gone to Hawaii. I grew up in Southern California where, it's pretty much a vacation all the time, weather-wise. And so we're going to go ahead and find some adventure in the Bahama kind of area. We've talked about it for years, and I think we're going to do it this next spring.
Nice, nice. Yeah. I've wanted to go to the Bahamas. After seeing that you can swim with pigs, I was like, oh, that sounds fun.
I don't think my wife wants to do that. I'll tell you right now, she does not want to do that. But I do see that us being adventurous and enjoying a land we've never been at before, and tropical weather and sunsets, I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely a a beach lover, so I hear you there. Yeah. All right. One more question. Who are three people that you admire most in the whole world?
Alive?
It could be alive or not.
Well, for me, my faith is a big deal. So I admire Jesus and the life he lived and the model he set for us. Um, I thought George Bush was a pretty cool guy. I didn't like all the decisions he made, but I liked the way he took ownership. He was an alcoholic and he saw that that was ruining his life and he made a choice. And then he was very public about it. And being a president's hard, but I like the way that which he went about doing it. I thought he was a class act. Again, nobody ever makes all the right decisions or does all things you like, but I liked him. I thought he was a cool guy. Um, People I admire these days, uh, there's a couple men in my life that I look up to that I think are pretty cool. Um, I have a guy named Mark Matlock who wrote a book recently called Conscious Faith and trying to be aware about other people's journey in faith. And I think he's got a cool vibe. I don't know him well. We spent a little bit of time together, but I've read most of his books and I just think he's a cool dude. I like where people articulate their thoughts well. I don't articulate very well. They're just in here ping-ponging around, and sometimes I don't use the words I probably should use or would want to do if I had the time to think about it. He just always seems to know how to say the right thing. And so I respect that. I think that's pretty cool. So Mark Matlock's a pretty cool. He's an author. He's written quite a few books. You can look him up.
Nice. Yeah. Where can the audience find you?
Well, I'm in a lot of places on social media. You can, if you're in business, you can look me up on LinkedIn. If you are doing the social thing, I'm on Facebook, and I'm promoting the book Nobody Cares. So if you look up Nobody Cares book, that's the most predominant place to find me. Our website is nobody care, www dot. I remember when I was raising a kid, my daughter would always go, "Oh, here's a www dot, Daddy." That was a cool journey she was on there. But nobodycaresbook.com. And for your particular website, I started a new website URL, nobodycarespod.com. And if you use the code word fun, I will mail you a copy of my book at no charge. If you will really read it and really apply it to your life, I would love to give you a copy of my book for the first two people who fill out that application and send it in with your address, I'll be glad to mail you a copy. It'd be my pleasure.
That's very awesome. Well, thank you for that. And thank you so much for being on.
It was fun.
It was fun, definitely. I enjoyed our conversation very much.
Thank you for having me on your show.
You're so very welcome. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.